amazing. Well, I'm going to get things off to an easy, gentle start this morning by asking you all a very simple question. Have you ever listened to a little kid ask why? Nearly 13 years ago, I helped my sister Dana with her 3-year-old son Noah after her daughter Kate was born. And Noah and I spent a rainy summer afternoon watching Monsters, Inc. together. For 2 torturous hours, I fielded his questions. Why did Mike make that funny noise? Why is that monster so mean? Why, Aunt Cece, why? Oh my Lord, they just didn't stop. It was so painful. But here's the thing. Children learn by asking why. They use it to make sense out of things. And it seems to me that asking why has become something of a lost art for us adults. And now I wonder, have we stopped asking why? Somewhere along the line of, as grown-ups, have we become intimidated by it or irritated by it? Have we become overwhelmed by not knowing why? Have we forgotten how to use it as a tool to accomplish our goals? As a compass, an anchor, maybe a voice about things that matter. So now I have a why question for you. Why did you become a nurse? Now I knew from about the time I was 5. Most of us can pinpoint the memory that resulted in the memory or the reason why we became a nurse, but I've known from early on. I would sit at this little play desk at my grandmother's house, and I would watch Ben Casey. And I would take nurse's notes as I watched. I was really into it. My grandmother made me this little World War II style nurse's cap, put her Red Cross pin on it, and I would watch for hours, totally fascinated by the stories and the people in them. And then, as the years went on, I'm totally hooked now. I read all the Cherry Ames books. I watched Medical Center and Marcus Welby, MD, MASH, completely glued to the TV set when Emergency came on. In those early days, I was completely intrigued by the extreme situations the human body could endure and the intensity of it all. So why did I become a nurse? I became a nurse because I was fascinated by how the human body works, and I wanted to have the knowledge and skills necessary to make very, very sick people well again. Now, we all have our reasons for becoming nurses, and in particular, critical care nurses. Maybe we wanted to help people in extreme situations, or were fascinated by physiology, or wanted to use breakthrough technology to support the human body. Or it could be that nursing was just fine, but really what it did is it allowed for a lifestyle that accommodated life's other interests. Whatever the reason, whatever your reason for becoming a nurse, this is the source of the passion that fuels your work. Work that is so energizing and intrinsically rewarding that it's a joy in and of itself. A paycheck is a necessity, sure, but the work and what it brings is the real reward. This is passionate work, and it's fundamental to who you are because you use your own inherent natural gifts. So an artist, for example, will see things of beauty throughout their day. And an engineer will see structure and form in every building that they look at. The work of nursing seems hard to outsiders, but it actually comes really easily to you. When engaged in passionate work, you lose a sense of time. Time just flies by. And I think best of all is that when you use your passions and gifts, you bring your best self forward to the service of others. Now, why is this even important? In his book, Start With Why, Simon Sinek says people are inspired to take action and be a part of something bigger than themselves when they understand the why of what they're doing. And when they see how that why connects to their own core purpose and beliefs. So when I think about it in this context, why is the strategy we use throughout our days and shifts? Why does my patient with a cerebral hemorrhage have this respiratory pattern? Why does my other patient, a young woman who had both kidneys avulsed in a high-speed car crash, have this crazy high cardiac output and low SVR? Why should I even stick my neck out and have a crucial conversation with a colleague? Why it makes us slow down and ask the right questions, because it's really handy when we come up with the right answers. And I believe that our everyday whys are really everyday pursuits of excellence. Why is this Foley still in? Why do we still need that central line? Does this patient need a blood transfusion? Why? Why is certification important to my practice? Now, obviously, asking why helps when things are going well and smoothly, but I am here to tell you it is absolutely essential when times get tough. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who was imprisoned in Auschwitz during World War II. He wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning, and in it, he described how he was on his way to work one day in the prison camp, trying to figure out if he should trade his last cigarette for a bowl of soup. And in that moment, he realized how trivial and meaningless his life had become. And if he was going to survive this horrendous situation, he was going to have to find some greater purpose. His solution was to imagine himself, when the war was over, giving a lecture to people about the psychology of the prison camp, because it was so very important that the world understand what he and his fellow prisoners had been through. Now, Frankl, he survived that prison camp, and he went on to become a world-renowned psychiatrist and a prolific writer. In his bleakest, darkest days, he used why to create purpose for himself. And he was able to make his present reality manageable, survivable. In this light, we can build bridges from our present day challenges to a better future for healthcare. Why would I, an individual nurse, join that committee? Why would we as a unit work so hard to create a healthy work environment? Why would I, you, we even try to make things better when healthcare has so many challenges? In times like these, why can be our guide and our inspiration for moving forward. Now let's step outside of healthcare for just a moment to see how this has worked through other periods of time. This all reminds me of the Impressionist painters of the late 19th century in France. So Monet, Degas, Van Gogh, and all the others were trained in classical art, but they felt trapped by the artistic rules of the day. Every year, painters from all over France submitted their finest paintings to be displayed and judged in the prestigious Paris Salon. But the Impressionist paintings were considered shocking, and they were refused entry into the exhibit. The Impressionists became the laughingstock of the European art world. But you know what they did? They pooled together their resources and their passions, and they put on their own darn show. And at first, yes, the critics were unforgiving, and they wrote scathing reviews. But it wasn't very much time later that they started to shift their perspective, and they came to accept and then praise this new Impressionist art style. And the world followed suit. Those individuals who had been marginalized became the artists and the teachers. And the rebels became the masters because they believed in and they fought for, and they created a world grounded in their whys. In today's healthcare, nurses are the masters overcoming obstacles to accomplish what's important. We are practicing our art and passionately using our gifts whenever we resuscitate a patient or relieve someone's pain, whenever we teach a new orientee, whenever we become a part of a larger group and relentlessly use our bold voices to overcome barriers. Barriers like inappropriate staffing, impractical regulations, dysfunctional EHRs. And you say to me, okay, but there's too much to do. The obstacles are too many, Chris. I'm just one person, a mere mortal here. All I want is 10 minutes so that I can sit with my patient to think, and I can't even get 5. Well, I hear that. I understand it, I experience it every day, absolutely. Now here's what I say back to you. Never underestimate the power of 5 minutes. While not as much as we need, and certainly not as much as what feels right, it goes a whole lot further than you think it does to your patient and their family. And I know in my heart this is true. Let me tell you why. About 18 months ago, my 86-year-old mother got very ill. She'd been losing her vision from macular degeneration, and she suddenly lost the last remnants of her eyesight. She was becoming confused. She developed a progressive weakness. She had excruciating pain in her wrists and her knees and her ankles. She couldn't even walk. Now, at the time, my parents lived in this little teeny town called Centennial in Wyoming at 8,500 feet elevation. And my 85-year-old dad could not manage this situation. So late one night, he had to call neighbors to come help and load her up into the Subaru and drive her to Cheyenne Regional Medical Center, which was 90 miles away. Now, luckily, I just happened to be in Boulder, Colorado at an AACN meeting. So I was able to rent a car and drive up to Cheyenne in the middle of the night, and I arrived sleep-deprived and absolutely devastated to see how sick my mother was. The diagnosis wasn't anything critical the way you and I would think about critical, But it was really serious. And I found myself suddenly in this incredible position of being a vulnerable family member trying to navigate an unfamiliar healthcare system. All these years of helping patients and families come to grips with critical illness and injury did nothing, absolutely nothing to prepare me for what it felt like to be on the other side. So I watched those nurses carefully. You know I did, right? You know how it rolls when you find out that your patient has a family member that's a critical care nurse. You kind of take a deep breath, you roll your eyes back, you maybe offer to float that day. And you kind of just go in the room saying, all right, here we go. So yeah, I watched these nurses. I watched them scan her ID band every time they gave her a med. I listened to them ask about her pain every time they interacted with her. I heard them give bedside report. And this was so awesome because all of these things made me trust that my mother was in a safe place and she was getting good care. But do you know what made the most difference to me in those 2 long weeks she was in the hospital? Much to my surprise, it was those 3 nurses who sat down to learn about who she was, ask about her home in the mountains, who talked with me about how I was doing so far away from home, who asked how my 85-year-old dad was holding up. Now, I know their colleagues worked really hard to do the right thing and get their work done efficiently and safely, but those 3 nurses, those 3 became my lifeline. I hope to hear them answer when I called on the phone. I watched for one of them to come into the room at shift change. These 3 took 5 minutes, which they probably didn't have, to connect with my mom, with me. They probably didn't think it was enough, but I am telling you, it meant everything to this tried and true, blood and guts trauma critical care nurse who happened to be a daughter. I could see and feel their why, and it profoundly impacted me. So yeah, we should always strive for more. We should maintain our promises to nurses to provide the best care possible despite the obstacles that are in our way. And in the meantime, we can't ever forget our why. Be it talking to patients, mastering hemodynamics, or conducting research. Because our whys are exactly what our patients, our colleagues, and our healthcare system depend on. Why? It's such a simple 3-letter word, and yet it's so powerful. Why is really our personal and professional compass, isn't it? Why we became nurses, why we go to work every day, why we come to NTI. It's obvious to me that nurses faithfully use why as our guide. And that is what inspired our theme for the coming year, Guided by Why. All right, at this point, it's completely fair for you to ask, okay, Shona, why guided by why? Well, I know that for me, There have been times when my why was crystal clear. And most of the time, that's how it is for me. My why is crystal clear. But sometimes it's been challenged. And honestly, there have been times when why has been pretty hard to find. So as I step into this role as AACN's 48th president, I invite you to join me in reconnecting with our why. When we do this, we reaffirm our core purpose and we have a guiding beacon for what we can, what we must do to assure that every patient gets the excellent care they deserve and that every nurse has the tools and the skills they need to provide that care. I love this three-letter word, why. There's energy in it, and courage, and endless possibility. I am so excited and deeply, deeply honored to share this year with you. Guided by why, we will make our optimal contribution to patients and families during the most vulnerable times in their lives. Why, you ask? Because as our AACN mission reminds us, nothing less is acceptable. Thank you.